Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome once again to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the weekly live stream. I do this stream a couple of times a week. This is where we talk about job search, careers, hiring, how to get hired, all that kind of stuff, getting a job, the job market, networking, all that kind of stuff. So how to do interviews, how to write applications, how to negotiate job offers, all of that, all wrapped up into one neat little package. And we don't just talk about the theory, we talk about what actually goes on in the real world with this stuff, complete with fake jobs, with recruiters who ghost you, all that kind of stuff that comes with the territory. So if you are joining me today, you should see a chat box. If you are a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of the video feed. Get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, and if I could be any help to you. I will do my best to help you out, answer your questions, and yeah, that's what this is about. I do not have any pre-rehearsed thing to say. I'm here simply to answer your questions. So let's do that. The title of this stream today is, Are You Making These Common Mistakes in Job Interviews? So we could kick things off talking about that. This is episode 120 of Honest HR Nitrous. We've done 120 of these. It's hard to imagine, or hard to believe anyway. Yeah, so there you go. And if you're watching this, check out my Get Hired course. If you are struggling with how to get hired, all my advice all in one place. Link in the description. More about that later. So yeah. Okay, let's just dive into this. Oh, before a public service announcement, special thanks to my YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome. Membership has the privileges. Also to my Patreons and to my super thanks donors and my viewers and participants. That means you. So way to go. You're looking particularly fine today too, I may say. Okay, so are you making these common mistakes in job interviews? What are common mistakes? There's a ton of them. Let me know what you guys think they are. One common mistake is to, how can I put this? Job interviews are about what you're like as a person. They're not about your qualifications. The application stage was about qualifications, right? They selected people based on your application and they brought you in for an interview, right? So on paper, you're qualified. In their eyes, you're qualified. The only question mark, the only doubt there might be on that is if you falsified anything on your resume, okay? But assuming that your resume and your job application, it was all, above board and it's all the truth, in their mind, you're qualified, right? So job interviews are not necessarily about how qualified you are. They're really not. That's not the tiebreaker, because everyone they call in for an interview, by definition, is qualified. You meet their minimal qualifications for the job. So the only question now is who you are as a person. What are your soft skills like? And are you the type of person that the boss would want to work for? And they would want you working for them, right? When you go to a job interview, you're usually dealing with a hiring manager and a recruiter. These two people are quite a bit different. The recruiter works for the HR department. They know nothing about the job that they've posted. They don't do that job. They work in the HR department. Their specialty is finding candidates. Conversely, the hiring manager, they are the person that is familiar with the actual job, because if you were to get the job, you would report to them. They would become your boss. That's who they are, right? So two different types of people. And the biggest determinant of who wins out in a job interview is which candidate the hiring manager likes the best. It just comes down to that. It's stupid because maybe it shouldn't come down to that, but that's what it does, right? They could hire anybody. It's like you hiring an assistant to do whatever. You interview a bunch of candidates and it comes down to which one, they're all qualified. Which one would you choose, You know, which one do you like the best? Right? That's how these things usually come down to. So being charismatic, being agreeable, that stuff really helps in an interview. So one common mistake that people make is they go in there with this kind of hoity-toity attitude, like, oh, this job is beneath me. I'm so professional. I'm so accomplished. I'm clearly the most qualified candidate for this. Tell me, why would I want to do this job? And that attitude itself eliminates you. You know what I mean? Like, for example, a common job interview question is for them to say, why do you want to work here? Right? And I've heard all kinds of answers that people have given. And a common thing I hear is people saying, well, I would say, or I always have said, well, why would I want to work here? It's like, yeah, fail. They're probably going to eliminate you just for saying that before you go even further, because that kind of signals that you're dealing with some kind of arrogant person, who would say something like that. That's not what they're looking for, usually. Usually. Takes all kinds, but usually that's not what they're looking for. I see there's 11 people here. Get into the chat because this is a live Q&A. I am here to answer your questions. I have nothing prepared. If I don't get any questions, I can't really do this. So I need people to get into the chat and to interact. Let me know what you're wondering about. Let me know what you're struggling with, and I'll do my best to help you out. I see that my close personal friend Ikpimanzi Amaush has joined as a member, so thank you to that person. They were here when I was live about 45 minutes ago, something like that. But that's awesome. I appreciate the support. I see there's 8 people here. Get in the chat. Let me know what you're struggling with in your job search, or you're maybe possibly confused about. That's what we're here to talk about. Yeah. So anyway, so that's a pretty common mistake that a lot of, especially younger candidates, do. They walk in with a very arrogant kind of attitude, and I think I understand the reasoning behind it. It's like, you want to sort of present yourself as someone who's very qualified, who's not going to struggle to do this job if they give it to you. If they give you the job, you can do it. It's not a big deal. It's not going to be an issue, right? So in order to convey that, you maybe conclude that, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to act like, yeah, this is not a problem. It's really trivial. I can do this backwards and forwards. The problem is it can backfire if you come across as arrogant. Here's a person who's, they consider this job beneath them. They're almost contemptuous of it. Or they give hostile answers, or kind of snippy hostile answers in some way. And that's a classic example that people keep saying to me in the comments of my YouTube channel. Why do you want to work here? And they say, well, why would I want to work here? Like the idea that they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them, or the other way around. You get what I'm saying? Like you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. That might be true from some kind of theoretical perspective, but in practice, that's not really what's going on here. They put up a posting, multiple people applied. When you apply, you indicate that you want the job, or else why would you apply for it? So you want the job, so they're interviewing you for it. They have many people that applied for it. So anyway, I've just seen that before where candidates go down and they have this very arrogant attitude, like, oh, I'm evaluating you, as much as you're evaluating me. It's like, yeah, well, okay, well, but then you did apply for this job. We didn't seek you out. You applied to our call. You know what I'm saying? So no, that's not really what's going on here. We're interviewing you, Anyway, so just don't make that mistake. Go in there. Even like sometimes these people are rude. Sometimes they don't understand manners and protocol the way one would think a normal human being would. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's a little Hitler complex, the power of picking people goes to their head. I'm not sure. But occasionally you get that. So even in the face of that, don't act all arrogant or whatever, or entitled in an interview. That's going to get you eliminated. So that's probably the most common mistake that I've seen that candidates do. Anyway, get in the chat. I'm here just to answer your questions. So whatever you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, let me know, and I will do my best to help you out. You guys like my screen when it's just au naturel? It's doesn't have any of that stuff in the way. It's nice if you're a modernist like me. But you can decide for yourself. I guess it's Friday. We're not getting as much participation today as we normally do. So yeah. Anyway, we're here. I'm here to answer your questions. So let me know if you have any questions. In the meantime, if you are looking for all my advice all in one place, check out that course, my Get Hired course. That's how to get hired in the posted job market and how to get hired in the hidden job market also. And it's tailored primarily for introverts. So if you are an introvert, that's someone who can do social interaction, but it's not something you enjoy. You don't surround yourself with 50 people you don't know, and get to meet them all. And you don't do that for fun. That's not you. If you're an introvert, I'm an introvert. I'm a technically minded introvert with a technical background, and learning a lot of the social aspect of whether it's interviewing or networking, that was always a big challenge for me in the beginning. So if you're interested in learning how introverts can kick ass at both of those things, check out my course, the Get Hired course. Yeah, I guess I'll hang out for another few minutes. It's kind of unusual. It's 12 minutes in. I don't really have any questions, but that's okay. Here we go. Nitam. Congratulations, you're the first person in the live chat, so you win the prize, which is a virtual handshake from me, so that would be something like that. Anyway, Nitam says, I received a job offer. I had to do 3 interviews. They were not very clear on the benefits, like medical, etc. After I asked about the benefits again, they rescinded the job offer. It was weird. Why would they do that? Why would a job do that? That's, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. That really sucks. And that, I'm sure that's really disappointing for you. And, you're right to ask questions about that because, first of all, it's illogical. It's not immediately logical. Secondly, that doesn't really speak to a good company. You know what I mean? Obviously doing stuff like this. Behind the scenes, there are a variety of reasons why they may do something like that. None, I think, that will be particularly satisfying to you, unfortunately, that explain it and make it all okay, because it's not okay. I'll just start listing them off. Number 1, it's a very remote chance, but it's possible that your job offer could have been sabotaged by a previous employer, current employer, that kind of thing. Unlikely, but these things have been known. Okay. Secondly, the company could have not been serious in the first place. Okay. Either it was a fake job or some other thing is going on where, they weren't really serious about hiring you. Sometimes these things arise from power struggles or turf wars within the company. So one manager wants to hire new people, another manager doesn't, right? It's a bit of a power struggle on who gets their way, right? So one manager initiates the hiring process. They're kind of, following through with it, but then, internally, the other manager wins out, gets it shut down, that kind of thing. So that stuff does happen, okay? Once again, not usually the sign of a good company for doing stuff like that, because now their internal power stuff is bleeding into the external environment. It's affecting the public, when you apply for jobs and you turn down candidates and things like this. So that might have been what was going on. Thirdly, it could have been a miscommunication. There could have been something weird going on there where you were just asking a question about this, but maybe somehow they got the impression you were, sticking your nose up at it and saying like, no, this is not good enough for me. I want more than this. And that's how they interpret it. I mean, like, I don't know how that would have happened if it was verbal or something. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if that's, something that might have happened, or they could have just changed their mind. Like, for example, when they posted the job or when they initiated the hiring process, which could have been months ago, where they started to think about, okay, let's assign a recruiter to this. Let's figure out what the requirements are. Let's figure out what their pay scale is going to be. Let's get approvals for all this, right? Like that might have been a while ago. Between then and now, maybe the company, like business has been bad or something, and now they've had to sort of cancel or rethink why they might be hiring somebody. Like, we just made a big loss this quarter. Are you sure we should be hiring? We need to, maybe the initiative just came down saying that we need to cut costs. We need to slash our costs. And one of the first things they're going to do is like stop all hiring, right where it is, So that could have been something. It might not have been triggered by your question on benefits, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things that could be going on behind the scenes. It's impossible to know what it was, right? You know what I mean? So that's what I would say. It's nothing you need to worry about. Like I know that's much easier said than done. Anyone is gonna feel bad when this happens to them. So if that's you, you're not alone. You're normal. This is a normal thing. But from what you're saying here, what you're telling me about what happened, it's nothing to do with you. They said yes, and then they immediately said no. Right? It's frustrating and disappointing. Okay, but you'll never know what was going on the inside of the organization. So don't worry about it. I know it's hard, but try to forget this and try and keep thinking about your next move. What are the next opportunities going to be that you're going to create for yourself? Follow new leads, apply to more jobs, do some networking to get do things like informational interviews, do things like direct outreach, and move forward. Okay. These people just don't have their shit together, if I can put it like that. Okay. So don't worry, need 'em. You're going to be fine. Okay. It's just how things go sometimes. And thanks for sharing. Gary Lee Sanchez Cuervo says, could you tell me why businesses make interviews just as another way of being promoted as the supposed hard to get the job there then happens to they already have gotten their candidate? Well, I'm struggling with the grammar in this big long sentence you've written. Could you tell me why businesses make interviews just as another way of being promoted as the supposed hard to get the job there then happens to they already have gotten their candidate? It continues. I had a filter to a job in a 5-star hotel and the recruiter seemed slow and gave me the impression in saying, I don't want you. This is a protocol only. Well, once again, I don't fully understand the situation or what you're asking, but I can tell you that, first of all, if you're talking about getting promoted, you started off by talking about getting promoted internally. And you're saying, as I understand it, it takes the form of an interview. So almost like they're interviewing you to decide if they're going to give you a promotion. That's what I understood from the first thing you said. But it turns out that they've already got someone else in mind. So Yeah, I suppose that can happen. That's not unheard of. I haven't heard of people like interviewing people as a way to get promoted. I haven't. I mean, it kind of happens on the job. They evaluate you on the job. Presumably, it's your immediate boss that's it's either making the call or is certainly a big part of the decision-making process. And they will be observing you and interacting with you to see what your performance is and whether you should be promoted. Okay. So that is a thing. Doing a bait and switch where they say, come and interview for this, but then it turns out they already have somebody else in mind. That is common. That is common because what they're doing is they're saying, look, I need to hire somebody and we decide who we hire. Like, that's just how it goes. Like, whoever makes the decision makes a decision. You can hire who you want. What they're basically saying is they're saying, if you want to be considered for this, put yourself forward, let us know. And, if we decide to interview you, we will. If we just want to look at your application, we will. There's no guarantees, but we will consider you, and you never know what they're doing. There's no like, unless you're in like certain small bubbles, like pockets of the world, like in government. Usually in government, they have to, there's certain rules, internal rules that govern how they do this stuff, because they're spending public money and all this kind of stuff, but in the private sector, you have to conform to employment standards, and those are more external. They don't say like how you decide to hire someone. They just talk about, now that you've decided to hire them, you have to do it in a certain way, right? I mean, that obviously varies depending on which country you're in and which jurisdiction, but that's the general idea. So the point is that they can go through the hiring process however they want. And some companies have like really crazy, ridiculous like hiring. Like, I came in, I did 9 interviews for like, there all kinds of dysfunctionality happening on the inside. Every manager wanted their own interview so that they could be involved, and like, just really stupid. So they have the right to basically do the selection process the way they want. You have the perfect right to say, screw you, I'm not being a part of this, Like, I want the job, but I'm not going to go through this. I refuse to go through this process that you have, so goodbye. You have the right to do that. But that's how it is. So some companies handle it very poorly, and it's a real statement about the company or about the organization. That's all I can say, So hopefully that makes sense. That's sort of my take on it. I'm not sure if that's really helpful or not, but that's kind of how these things work. You know what I mean? But it is a consistent theme how, if you are a candidate applying for a job, especially if you're going for an in-person interview, you're going to some lengths to be there, and the professional, proper thing to do is for them to be polite, to follow protocol, to have a sense of manners and etiquette, show you respect. That's something that good organizations do and that good individuals do. But a recurring theme we have is that a lot of companies don't, and a lot of people don't. They're rude, they're condescending, they act in a very arrogant kind of way. Some people that are in these positions of authority, like recruiters and managers and stuff, the power to decide kind of goes to their head, and they get off on it. They sort of like, oh, this is what makes me important. This is why I'm so important. I get to decide, and then they lord it over people and they act very rudely, and it's just bad. So if that's what you've been experiencing, first of all, you have my sympathies. Nobody should have to go through that. I got my fair share of that like years ago. A lot of companies that, just treat you like crap as a candidate. They're not polite. And then we see that in things that are kind of indirect, like ghosting. If they're no longer considering you, they don't have the common courtesy to tell you this and explain it. Now, I do understand that process. I understand why they do it. There's several practical reasons there. You know what I mean? Like, if someone has come down to an interview, I would definitely take the trouble to respond. If people send in an application, I don't know if that's like the most powerful requirement ever, that you must get back to them and tell them no. And like, some people want to know all the reasons for it. That's much more of a thing that's never really going to happen. They're never going to respond with a no and then say why. And if they do give you a reason, you can pretty much bet it's not the actual reason, that they passed on you for. So anyway, get in the chat. Let me know. Like, I'm just here to answer your questions. So thank you for Gary Lee Sanchez Cuervo and Nidum for participating so far. You guys are awesome. I hope things go well for you. When we're in this process, it always feels like it's a permanent thing. Like there's no hope. We're unemployable. That's how it feels. If you feel like that, you're not alone. But know this, it's temporary. You will find something. You're going to be okay. Okay. That's just the reality. So keep your spirits up. What helps is, instead of dwelling on things that didn't work out, focus on what's, focus on moving forward. What are you going to do today? What are you going to apply to today? Are you going to do any networking? Are you going to do direct outreach? Learn about direct outreach. That's the simplest thing. Direct outreach online. It's the simplest thing you can do. Learn what organizations you do that to, how you find them, how you go about doing it, what to communicate. Probably the biggest thing you could possibly do to get hired. If you don't know that, you're curious about that, I have several resources. In the description box of this video, there's a link to a video I did called How Successful People Get Jobs. Check that out. Okay, How Successful People Get Jobs. That's the name of the video. Check that out. Okay, if you want to go even further with me, check out that course. That'll explain all of it, the whole thing from beginning to end. Why it works, what's going on, why you do it this way instead of another way, that kind of stuff. And you can apply these principles. Gary Lee says, thank you. You got the points regardless of some hard writing from me. I appreciate it so much. Well, you're absolutely welcome, Gary, and thank you for participating. And I hope you got something useful. Best of luck to you. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to point out is that as we approach the end of the year, depending where in the world you're watching this from, the end of the year, like December, is holidays for a lot of countries. Like that's kind of just, you have statutory holidays, and that's where people are celebrating various things, and like Christmas and other things. And the instinct is to wind down your job search at that time. And you certainly can if you want to. You can do whatever you want. But I would point out that a lot of people think that, the reason they're winding down their job search is because they think that, there's no point to job searching now. None of the recruiters will be working. None of the companies are hiring. They won't be considering applicants at this time of year. And I'm here to tell you that's false, because hiring dips like a little bit in December, right? But what happens is the job seekers that are looking for jobs, they stop quite a bit before picking back up in January, right? So you actually have better odds of finding something, ironically, at the end of the year, in December, and like November, December, than you do throughout the rest of the year. It's really weird how that works out. It's not because, the more companies are looking, but it's because all the other job seekers have stopped their job search, right? And that actually makes it so that that ratio of like how many people are chasing how many jobs, right? Normally there's this many jobs and there's this many people looking, right? In December, the amount of jobs go down like this, but the amount of people looking goes like that before coming back up. So if you're looking in that period of time, you have substantially less competition. Anyway, I do a live stream every 2 weeks where I am accompanied by another YouTuber, Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. She's a recruiter, and we were talking about this on Monday live on this channel, and she was corroborating that. She was saying, yeah, like we actually ramp up a lot of our hiring stuff in December, and we're actually looking, and that's when people retire and, go on leaves of absence and stuff like that. So that's when we need people. And, but a lot of job seekers are not looking right at that time. So there you go. Khalid, 3701 says, what is the best way to negotiate the salary? And when do you recommend asking about the position salary if it is not mentioned? Okay, so here's the deal. If you try to negotiate salary before they have decided on who they're going to offer the job to, you lose. It's just that simple. Because what's going on is, you see, they're talking to several candidates, right? They're interviewing, 5, 6 people usually, right? Now, you're one of the 5 or 6, right? And you start giving them a hard time about salary. I want to know what this job pays. I want this amount of money, right? Or I can't do it, right? Now, usually what's going to happen is they're going to go, okay, well, you're eliminated, and we're just going to continue talking to the other people that haven't given us conditions and ultimatums on compensation, right? Because we haven't even decided we want you yet, and you're like dictating to us what you want and what you need, and it's like, no, that's the red flag. If this is how you're behaving in the job interview, think of what you're going to be like on the job. You're going to have a problem with this, you're going to have a problem with that, you're going to have all kinds of conditions. It's like, no. What we're looking for is we're looking for someone who just wants to work here. If we give them the job, even if it's not for a great amount of money, they'll still be happy. That's what we're looking for. Now, maybe unbeknownst to you, the job actually does pay pretty well. Who knows? But you just lost it by having that attitude, okay? So at least that's how it's going to be perceived, okay? So the only time that you can really bring up salary or other forms of compensation and attempt to negotiate is when you've received a written offer, okay? So if you get to that point, they say, congratulations, we would like to hire you. We'll send you an offer tomorrow or late tonight, if we can do it in time. And you should have that within like the next 24 hours. Read it over and please return it to us, and then we can get rolling, right? And then you wait for them to actually send you the written offer. Only at that point can you talk about salary. And the reasoning is that, you see, up until that point, if you make a demand and say, I need this, they don't feel any pain or any pressure to like accommodate you. Because like, okay, well, you want that, but we're also talking to other people, and they're pretty easygoing. So why would I worry about trying to satisfy you when I got these people? We don't even know if we want you yet. But once they've said, we want you, and then they show that by giving you an offer in writing that they've had to draft, right? That means that they've done all their background checks on you. They've checked references. They've discussed it internally. Like usually it's more than one person that's involved in hiring decisions. It'll be a hiring manager with like a recruiter and, maybe the hiring manager's boss, right? So they've all had those conversations about you, and they've all decided, okay, we're all agreed. We're going to hire this person, right? It's only then that if you say, I need this or I can't take it. I can't take it if you don't give me this. That's the only time they feel pressure, pain to give you what you want. Because if you throw it back in their face now it's painful. It's embarrassing for the recruiter who recommended that they go with you. It's painful to the hiring manager. They want someone to start. They need another worker, and they need them to start as soon as possible, and you're now delaying the process. So it's painful to them, right? You know what I mean? So they've already said no to the other candidates, basically. Or a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times. You know, so like they now have to come up with a contingency plan if you refuse it, right? So it's painful. So this is the moment. This is the first moment that you can actually demand something, and then they feel some pressure to actually give it to you. Okay, so that's how negotiating works. That's when you would do it. Up to that point, before you receive a written offer, your strategy should be to not ask about this stuff, not demand anything, not discuss it. That should be your strategy, because the more you get into it, the more bad things will happen. The more you're going to like demand things, the more they're going to try and haggle you down. It's not going to go well. And you have no power in that process at all, because they're still talking to many other candidates, right? Okay, so I understand that you want to know how much the job is worth, like how much they pay. Okay, I understand that you want to know that. Everybody wants to know that. The problem is that if you go in there in your first interview or your first interaction, you say, how much does this job pay? You know, because what that sings to them is that you don't care about doing the job. You're just there to get the money. That's what's important to you. And that eliminates you, because they don't want someone who's only in it for the money. They want someone that is actually suited for this kind of work, that's excited to do that kind of work in this place for this employer. That's what they're looking for. Rightly or wrongly, that's what they're looking for. Okay? So by getting into like the money thing, you're signaling that you're not the person they're looking for. That's the irony of it, right? So what you've got to do is you've got to be a little bit disciplined enough to delay getting into that stuff until later, right? A lot of candidates, they don't like to hear that, especially when they're young, because they don't have a lot of patience. They want to say, I don't want to waste my time talking to this employer that's hiring. You know, if I don't have an absolute guarantee that this pays a certain amount of money that I need, then I'm wasting my time. The reality is that some jobs, their hands are tied for like what they pay. Okay, certainly. But a lot of other jobs, especially when you get beyond like the worker level, like you're a supervisor, manager, or some kind of professional, they really don't know exactly how much they should pay, how much you're worth. They don't know that. So they have kind of a guess as to, this is our range. I think somewhere between here and here is probably what we're going to do. You know, so they guess at that, right? And if you say like, no, I need to know now, before this goes any further, you need to tell me how much you pay. They don't like that, because they don't know how much they pay. And it's like you're forcing them to show their hand, like to show like what, you know, they're playing with. That makes it harder for them, and they don't like that. So the very act of like you trying to control the conversation and bring that up, that either does eliminate you or it almost eliminates you for sure doing that. Okay, so that's why I would recommend against that. So what you should do is you should go to every job interview, try not to talk about compensation, see how far it goes, right? Try to get the damn job. And then if they get to the point where they give you an offer, that's when you get into it, because that's the only time that you have any real power to negotiate. Does that make sense? It means you have to be disciplined to go to one, maybe even two interviews before you know for sure what the range is sometimes. But that's the price you pay for having the best chance of actually getting it. So the choice is yours. That's usually how these things are set up. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a great question, Khalid. How do you say this? Kagendal says, hi, after so many interviews, I started experiencing too much excitement issue instead of getting more confident. I mean, I cannot even introduce myself due to the excitement issue at the beginning. When you say excitement, do you mean nervousness? Like you're nervous? You feel self-conscious? You don't feel comfortable doing it? If that's what you're talking about, congratulations, you're normal. That's a normal thing. Especially for younger people that are just starting out, it feels uncomfortable. You feel nervous. You don't know how this stuff works. You might never even have ever been taught how to do this stuff, So the pressure's on, the stakes are high, and then you're doing something that you're not comfortable with, and you don't even know what you're doing really, if you're saying the right things. So that's understandable. So you're normal, Now, how do we overcome this? Well, like anything else in life, the way you overcome something and you get good at something is you learn what to do and then you practice. How do you get good at sports? You learn what to do, you learn the technique, how to play, and then you practice, right? How do you get good at a musical instrument? You learn how to play it, like what to do, and then you practice that musical instrument, right? This is no different, especially if you're someone that like is an introvert like me, or the social skills don't come naturally to you. A lot of people experience that. So the thing is, no one's just instantly good in the same way that no one's instantly good at a sport. Like you've never played the sport before, you never practiced it before, but you get up and the first time you play it, like you're the best player, in the entire place. It's like, usually that doesn't happen, right? So this is no different. We get good at it by learning how it's done and then practicing. So if you're worried about like how to introduce yourself, you say, I can't even introduce myself. Okay. The first thing is to learn what to say. So for example, you would learn that this is how you introduce yourself. You say, hello, my name is Bill Todd. It's great to meet you. Now then it depends on what context it's in. So if it's in a job interview and they say something like, tell me about yourself, then you would know how to answer that question. You say like, well, as you can see from my resume, I have this education and then I have this work experience. I worked here for this amount of time. I did this. Then I worked here for this amount of time and I did that. Right. And that's what brings me here today and why I'm excited to learn more about this opportunity, something like that. Right. If you're introducing yourself in a social function, you say, hello, my name is Bill Todd or whatever your name is. It's very nice to meet you. And then, I don't know if you have to give yourself a couple words of introduction. You say like, I've been coming here for a couple of years. I know the owner over there. That's why I'm here. They recommended this to me, so that's why I'm here. I'm hoping to get this out of it, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you very much for your attention. There you go. Something like that. Like whatever it is that you're trying to learn. And then you practice. You practice by yourself. And then you get, if necessary, in the case of a job interview, you get someone else to help you, like a friend or family member, and you do practice job interviews over and over and over and over, right? And once you've done like 40 practice job interviews where they've asked you all the standard questions and all the questions they could think of, you'll be a lot better, than when you started. That's just how it goes. Okay, so that's generally how we do these things. You learn what the right technique is, and you could learn that from YouTube or the internet or wherever, and then you practice. And if you do that, you're going to kick ass in a very short amount of time. Okay, so best of luck to you, Kagandal, if I'm saying that right. Okay, we got 12 people here. Thank you for being here. This is an interactive live stream, so if you got questions about anything to do with careers, job searches, getting hired, finding a job, or anything like that, I talk about all that stuff on my channel. I also talk about things like entrepreneurship that are kind of related to it. It's another way of making money. It's a way that I encourage, but it's not for everybody. But anyway, if you have any questions about job search in any way, shape, or form, or careers, let me know. Get in the live chat. I have nothing to say and nothing to talk about that's pre-planned. I'm here simply to answer your questions. So send me some questions, whatever you're wondering, whatever you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. Kagandal says, I appreciate. You're absolutely welcome, Kagandal. Yeah. And Khalid says, thank you. You're welcome, Khalid. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so it's Friday. I do live streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday generally, and so I have some streams scheduled for next Monday. On this coming Monday, I don't have the collaboration stream. Usually, I have a collaborative live stream once every 2 weeks on the Monday with Abby from Life Work Balance. We answer your questions together. The difference is that she's a recruiter and I'm a former CEO. So we have different perspectives on things sometimes, but we have the same perspective on other things. And you get two sort of different perspectives when you ask questions. So we don't have that on Monday, but we have it a week on Monday. So that's coming up. Femi Williams says, how do I go about answering a technical question I don't know the answer of during an engineering interview? Well, if you don't know the answer, there's not really much you can do. Like, I'm assuming it's a serious question. You can't just sort of deflect it with humor or something. And if you don't know the answer, the next best thing is to say, like, well, I can't do this for you here in real time. But if you at least know the approach to solve that problem and get the answer, you could say, like, well, you know, normally the way I would do this is I would involve this technique and I would involve this reasoning and I would figure it out that way. You know, unfortunately, I don't recall the formula off the top of my head. If I was doing this on the job or at home or whatever, I have my reference books, and with my reference book, I'd be able to solve this for you relatively easily, but I can't do that in front of you without my reference books because I don't do this type of problem enough, that I have it all memorized, but, so something along those lines. I mean, at least you're saying something. You're saying, I know the approach. I would be able to do it, this kind of thing. Showing that you at least understand the approach, you understand the methodology and the reasoning involved, stuff like that. If you do know that stuff, you say that, you might get kind of partial points in a way, that's probably the only thing you can do, right? If it's possible to give a guesstimate of what the answer might be, right? Because sometimes there's a type of interview question. I think these are stupid, but they exist. There's a type of interview question where basically they'll ask you some weird pseudo-scientific question. They'll say, like, how many tennis balls can you fit into this room? Or something like that. And a lot of technical people and introverts, they balk at those questions. They say, like, that's idiotic. Like, how would I know that? But what these people are doing is this is so stupid. They think they're so clever in doing this, but what they're doing is they just want to see if you can do the process of rough estimation. So they would say, okay, let's see. So this room is approximately, 12 feet by maybe 10 feet by 8 feet, something like that. So 12 times 10 times 8. So that's the cubic volume, like the whatever. Now, tennis balls packed into a space, you could probably get in like 1 cubic foot, you could probably get about 15 tennis balls, I'm guessing, approximately. So 15 multiplied by that volume gives you this number. Approximately that number of tennis balls would fit into this room. There you go, right? And they're going, yes, you passed the question. Good job. And it's just like so stupid, you know? In engineering, I mean, this is like child's play to engineers. You know, it's like going to some kind of interview as a lawyer to get a job as a lawyer in a law firm and them saying, you know, have you ever used a dictionary before? Do you know the meaning of words? It's like, of course, I'm a lawyer, you know, obviously I do. You know, but sometimes they ask you those kinds of stupid questions and they think that, oh, that's so revealing of your abilities, you know, it's like, you know. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that dumb people think smart people do, you know? So that's how some HR people think that they can spot good engineers and tell good engineers from bad engineers. It's crap, but that's what they think. So anyway, that's what I have to say to that. You're welcome, Femi Williams. I don't know if that was all that helpful, because I didn't really give you an answer. I mean, it's a tough one. If they give you an engineering problem and you don't know the answer and you can't figure it out, there's not a ton you can do to really solve the situation. You know, you got it wrong or you can't do it. You know, the results speak for themselves. So that's all that's possible, is just to try and put a positive spin on it, you know. WA2190 says, "Hi, sir. My name is Andrew. I'm a mid-career IT technician, currently working 2 in-between jobs until an opportunity arises to get back into my career." Okay, so a mid-career IT technician. The job market is bad right now in my area. Okay, well, there's not really a question there, but, you know, the thing is, here's the deal, Andrew. Now, okay, there's, for things like IT, I mean, look, none of us have a crystal ball as to know exactly what's going to happen. But, I mean, I've been following IT for like nearly 30 years, and, you know, you see different like boom periods and then bust periods. Boom, bust, you know. Boom, everybody, all the people in IT are making snotty comments and everyone else saying, I bet you guys wish you were in IT. Then you'd have a job like me. I got hired like the day after I graduated. You know, what do you think? And, you know, all you poor idiots, you know, struggling to find a job, I bet you wish you were me. And then fast forward 3 years, and then IT people are being laid off in waves, you know, and they're all crying about like, oh, you know, I can't get hired, right? Now, the thing is that there's never any point where they're not hiring, okay? There's always hiring happening because there's always attrition, right? These industries are not permanently imploding. They're going through cycles, right? But they're not, you know, being destroyed, right? So that's the thing. Now, you might get a redistribution of people. Like, for example, maybe there's less and less people being hired to manage, you know, that know like Unix or mainframes or something like that. Maybe more people getting hired that know AI or, you know, can write AI algorithms, stuff like I don't know. But so there's like some redistribution of talent happening. But in absolute terms, the industry, there's no period of time, and there hasn't been a period of time where the IT industry hasn't been hiring. Okay, so you can get a job right now. It's just a lot tougher, right? So what I would say is, if you can improve your ability to get a job, okay, you can like look in places that nobody's looking. You can make yourself so much more attractive as a candidate than other people are. Then you can snag one of the few jobs that is available now, right? You don't have to, like, when you say to me, like, oh yeah, the industry is really bad. Okay. Like, yeah, that's true. But if what you're saying is like, okay, I shouldn't even bother because there's no way I'm going to get hired, because the industry's bad. I disagree with that. So I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, but if that's what you're trying to say, I would disagree with that. Okay. This is a great opportunity for you to redouble your efforts to learn new techniques, and knowing a bit about the IT industry and the people in it. What I would I'm going to wear my biases on my sleeve. I have met a lot of people from IT, people that really don't have any real people skills. Now, in good times, that's okay. You can maybe still get a job that way because the demand is so high. They can't get enough people. They'll hire everybody. So it doesn't matter, they'll overlook a bunch of flaws and you'll get a job anyway. But in leaner times when they're laying people off and the industry is contracting a bit, that's when the people that, don't like maybe you don't have great social skills or people skills, or you don't know how to sell yourself, or you can't interview very well. That's when this stuff really, really makes a difference because, they can afford to pick and choose now. So the people they pick are, the ones that kind of have everything, right? So if you're missing skills in a certain area, this is a great time to brush up on your skills. And knowing a bit about people in the IT business and working with them as I have over many years, usually social skills are the weak area for a lot of people. So this is a great time to open your mind. I don't know anything about you, but I'm just playing the odds here. If this is you, open your mind, lose maybe a disrespect you may have for social skills, for speaking with people, networking, being able to sell yourself, being able to persuade someone. Excuse me. Man, I'm still under the weather. I apologize. Okay. Learn some of those skills and then use it to get hired. Okay. Let's see here. So you say usually 100 to 200 applicants per role unless applying early. That doesn't sound right. Usually it's up to 800 applicants. I would assume we're hitting 1,000 right around, if the industry is contracting. But that's the stuff that's publicly posted, right? Okay. I would advise applicants to not let desperation force them to make rash decisions and encourage, like you say, practice your trade, use LinkedIn Premium Learning. Well, okay. If you're going to learn something, I would recommend, my own stuff, right? Don't come on here and then tell everyone to go somewhere else for their learning. Okay? That's an example of social skills. That's etiquette, right? So what you're signaling to me right now is that you don't understand some basic etiquette, right? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, right? Maybe bone up on some of this stuff now, improve that disadvantage you may be struggling with. It might probably be the reason why people are not hiring you. I don't know. But use this opportunity to overcome some of those weaknesses, tack on that knowledge and those abilities, and then they won't be holding you back. They'll actually give you an edge. And in IT, they will certainly give you an edge because I know for a fact, from my experience, that, a lot of people in IT really have underdeveloped social skills. You can end up getting the short end of the stick and work a job someone might have left for a reason, like my last 2 IT jobs. They were not what I deemed sustainable or feasible. I have a high IQ and sustained education. I watch you for job search skills. At the time I check in to apply for their trade, I use LinkedIn Learning. Okay, great. Anyway, let me know what your questions are. I'll be sticking around for a little bit if people have questions. Let me know if you're struggling with anything, you're wondering something, anything to do with careers, anything to do with job search, and I will do my best to help you out. That's why I do these. So let me know. There are 16 people here. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Femi Williams says, if offered a job, would you always recommend trying to negotiate salary, even if I'm happy with the first offer? No, I wouldn't always recommend negotiating necessarily. Here's the deal. When you negotiate, technically it's risky. Okay. It depends what you're negotiating. If you're asking for some little teeny tiny thing, it's probably less risky, but it is still risky to a degree. They're always, anytime you make a counter offer, there's always the chance that they can turn around and say, nope, absolutely not. We don't change our offers, and any attempt to haggle or negotiate, results in us withdrawing the offer. So your offer has been withdrawn. It's been rescinded. Have a great day. You know what I mean? Like that has been known. Okay. Now it's not super common, but it is a chance, right? So anytime you attempt to make a counter offer, there is a chance that could happen, right? Now, for most people in most situations, that's not a reason to not negotiate. That just means just if you're desperate for a job and you must get this and you must get it now, then I would say don't negotiate, because just sign it, return it, and have the job in the bag. Don't do anything to provoke them. Don't do anything to give them pause and make them reconsider. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would say about that. So it's not something I would say you always should negotiate. Now, on Monday, 5 days ago, I was live with Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. She's a recruiter, and she was sharing her perspective on that. She was saying we always expect candidates to negotiate. That's just, we expect them to do that. That's a standard thing. So there you go. I mean, that's not coming from me. That's coming from a recruiter. So yeah, it is a standard thing, but it depends what you ask for. If you're asking for double the money, that's going to be a pretty tall order. That's probably going to sabotage your job offer. They're just going to say nope, and they're going to rescind it. If you're asking for just very minor things, can you give me 1% more pay, and can you give me 5 more vacation days, or some little thing, it's okay, sure, done, right? So that's kind of how that stuff works. Okay. It depends on your situation. It depends on what you're asking for. Those all come into play. Okay. If you feel that it was a stretch for them to even pick you, and if it was a panel decision and you feel that I know that at least nearly half the people on that panel did not like me and they're not voting for me to be the one that they hire, I'm not going to push my luck. I'm just going to be happy to be there and stuff. So let's see here. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so we've got WA 2190 giving more of their spiel here. I took your advice on reaching out to higher ups in companies and put my own spin on it. If I apply for a job, I will try to find a higher up in a company to introduce my profile and make a mention. I attended a staffing agency webinar for Robert Half where they shared their salary guide and they said to mention their quotes during negotiation. I'm in a desperate situation, to be honest, so I think I will play it safe, maybe negotiate later. And oh, okay, this is sorry, that different person. Okay. And earlier I was right to recommend LinkedIn Learning for job search advantage and learning. You have a lot to read. You must got confused. Okay. Femi Williams says, I'm in a desperate situation, to be honest, so I think I will play it safe. Now, this was the salary thing. Okay. Maybe negotiate later when I prove myself on the job. Thanks. Yes, if you're desperate, you need this, then just take it. Don't give them an opportunity to turn you down, okay? So I would support that, okay? Now, remember, just because you get hired someplace doesn't mean that you have to settle for this for the rest of your life. Doesn't mean that you can't keep looking for jobs after you've already started working there, like, be a good employee and do your job. But when you're off the clock and, you're on your own time, doesn't mean you can't keep looking for jobs if you aspire to do something better. Okay. And it's always easier to get hired when you're currently employed than when you're unemployed. You know what I'm saying? So take the job, get it, and then, you're secure, and then you can move forward one way or another. Okay. So Femi Williams, you're doing the right thing, and you're going to be just fine. Okay. Voxnees says, what's minimum amount of time you should stay at a job for so you're not considered a job hopper? Who gives a shit if you're considered a job hopper or not? That's what I would say. Who cares? You're in control of your life, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks other than you. Now, addressing your real issue here, okay, you always have the option of leaving a job off your resume, and pretending like it didn't exist if it was just a bad thing. You started, it was terrible, you left after a short period of time for your own sanity. You know what I'm saying? That's okay. If the place sucks, if you're not getting anything out of it, it doesn't make sense for you to be there. Don't worry about, will you be considered a job hopper? If it's the right thing for you to do, get the hell out of there. Now, I'd recommend that you do it in a smart way. If you possibly can, try to find another job before you quit your current job, if that's possible, right? So, that still applies. But I wouldn't worry about what it might look like. The immediate reality for you is all that matters. If it makes sense for you to do something, right? You can always, first of all, you can always correct or change the reality on your resume by leaving it off your resume. Okay, there's always that. And besides, most people in this world get hired through networking, not through recruiters. And when you get hired through networking, nobody gives a rat's ass about things like this. If you had one bad experience, one company that you started with and it was terrible, so you left after a short time, people who know you and they know that you're a good person and they know you're a good worker, they don't care about that. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you have a history of working at places for only 1 month, and you've done that to 6 companies in a row, and now you're about to do it to a 7th, then maybe you got an issue with appearing like a job hopper. But that is not based on what you're doing now. That's based on your history of the last 6 companies you've been to, right? So if that's the case, maybe you need to find a line of work that you can tolerate, you know what I'm saying? And you have a history of 1 or 2 companies that you stay with for more than about a year and a half, maybe at least a couple of years. And then nobody will think you're some kind of weird job hopper. You know what I mean? So, okay. So that's kind of how that stuff works. You do control people's perception of you to a degree, so staying at a job or not really doesn't determine that stuff. You can correct it. Okay, let me know any questions you might have, or I will be wrapping this up shortly. I see there's 15 people. Thank you for being here. And I'll be back on Monday. On Mondays I do 2 live streams. One is about job search, the second one, but the first one on Monday is about entrepreneurship. So if you're interested in that, come back on Monday. That's where we talk about that stuff. Just as a reminder, if you are confused about job search, you want to learn about how job search is done, maybe you're looking in the posted job market for posted jobs and applying to those, going through recruiters, doing job interviews, negotiating offers, that kind of stuff. Or maybe 80% of people on the planet, you get hired instead, by not doing any of that, but instead through networking, okay? And networking is an umbrella term. It just means people communicating with other people, right? There's a lot of different activities within the world of networking. But if you're, especially if you're an introvert or a technical person, you've never really networked, you don't know even what that is, but you're curious about it, check out that course right there. My Get Hired course. It's all my advice, all in one place. The real gem there is how to get hired through networking. You can open up so much opportunities for yourself. You can jump to the head of the line. You know what I mean? There's so many opportunities. 80% of jobs are never posted. So there's a lot of great jobs out there that, you don't find by looking at job search websites and things. So, and just for the sheer hell of it, I'm going to do something. I'm going to show this to you guys, or at least give you some corroborative evidence of this. If this is a surprise, if you don't know this, what I encourage one to do is I encourage you to go out and do your own research on this stuff. Don't take my word for anything. Don't take anyone's word for anything. Go and validate things for yourself from a variety of different sources. Okay, go and corroborate it that way. So let's see if I can pull this off here. Okay, so just for the people who don't know this, let's do this together here. Okay, so of all the jobs out there that I could get, that one could get, how many of them are actually posted online so that I could find them on websites like LinkedIn and Indeed and stuff like that? Okay, so there's no precise number of how many jobs. That's a good non-answer. Okay, here we go. Some older sources claim that as many as 70 to 80% of jobs are never posted publicly. Well, it's the same as it is today as it always has been. For example, one article says around 80% of jobs are not posted online. Yeah, that's because it's true. Just for me, my personal experience is around 85. Another says the hidden job market means 70% of jobs aren't visible on the public job boards. Okay, only 20% of hires come from direct application via online postings, right? My best estimate, putting the data together, if 70% of 80 of jobs are never publicly posted, then only about 20 to 30% are posted online or at least publicly. Okay? Now, look, you can go and you can do your own research on this, but this is what I'm telling you. So what this means is that all the job postings you see online, whether it's on Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, Jobzilla, like all of those, okay? All the staffing agencies, everything, private HR companies, all of that's something like only 20% of all the jobs that are actually out there, okay? Every job that I've gotten in the last 15 years at least has been on the hidden job market, meaning it's not posted publicly, right? I mean, this is real, okay? Everybody knows about this. 80% of people get hired like this, right? Unfortunately, people that have never been introduced to this in school or in any other, through their family or through their friends or anything else they've seen, right? You're missing out on this, like this is how this stuff works, I've been a CEO. We did all our hiring like this too. I mean, so what I'm saying is that like if this is all new, okay, a common reaction that people have when I tell this to them, especially young people, is their immediate reaction is they say bullshit, right? But then they go and then they find within like a few months that it's absolutely true, right? Now what I showed you a moment ago is this. I'm trying to convince you by at least showing you a source that doesn't come from me. I'm saying like, look, this the ChatGPT is saying this. So I mean, and you can do this yourself. If you're going to research this yourself, the obvious first thing to do, you go to ChatGPT, you go to Grok and all the other HM, go to Google, go look at articles, go do searches on this. What is the hidden job market? The hidden job market is simply all the jobs that are not posted publicly. They're there. They exist. You could get them, but they're not posted publicly. You don't discover them that way. What you discover them by is through networking. And the easiest form of networking is something called direct outreach. Now, introverts can do direct outreach and kick ass. And I've put that in a video that's in the description box of this live stream, like the description box, just under the video feed. I've put links to many things. One of them is a video of mine. The video is called How Successful People Get Jobs. And you can watch that video, and it's a video of me on my, like you're seeing my desktop, and I'm showing you what it looks like to do direct outreach. Okay, so you get an idea. Learn all you can about that method and a lot of other methods in networking. There's many, many things there. On my channel, 2 months ago, I did a video that you can watch. It's called How I'd Get a Job if I had to get a job. And the video is 45 minutes long, and I walk you through 11 different methods of getting a job. Okay? So check that out. If you're wondering about this stuff, like how it works, what you can do. Okay? And if you want to go deeper with me, all of my stuff is in this course here. That's where I really explain stuff properly, principle by principle. Okay? Not only for getting a job in the posted job market, but getting a job in the hidden job market. So the posted jobs and all the ones that aren't posted. Okay? So there's some resources. Check those out. And I encourage you to learn all you can about this stuff. Hopefully through me, but through any source really. And you're investing in yourself. You know, the more you know about this, and the more you know about how the world works and how people get hired and what's going on, the further you'll go. You know, it's just that simple. It's stupid to be super talented and have a lot of capabilities, but yet be held back because you didn't understand this stuff. You know what I mean? So that's my message. So there you go. End of rant. Let's quickly wrap this up here. Okay. Where are we here? WA2190. Networking with staff agents can become obnoxious. I used. Okay. Voxney says, bunch of people left at my company and they're backfilling the positions through an internal job board. Okay. And used to get tons of calls. Okay, cool. Excellent. Okay. Right. So thanks for being here. There's 13 people here. You guys are awesome. I wish you the best of luck. Have a great weekend. If you want to learn this stuff deeper with me, check out my courses. And I will be back on Monday. I'll be live again on Monday with 2 live streams. And I'll see you then. Best of luck. Take care.